post-launch. But initially, there's going to be between probably, I would say, 12 and 15 world raid bosses that are present, and that does not obviously include the dungeon bosses that will be present and
essa
regional
porra trava
bosses
aí.
that will be present too. The difference between dungeon bosses and regional bosses and raid bosses, legendary raid bosses, is essentially the amount of players that are necessary in order to complete that content, the difficulty level, as well as the drop tables that come along with those. So legendary equipment is only going to be droppable from legendary world bosses. The regional bosses, those can change based off of, and also legendary bosses are static. The regional bosses can change based off the progression of certain types of nodes and the location of those nodes as well.
Acho que agora tá boa, o pessoal tá falando.
Question from Frozen. Frozen asks, many people believe that multi-boxing is a pay-to-win feature. Why is it being allowed in Ashes
Sobre multibox.
Pay to win, ele vai falar agora, né?
Creation, and will there be any restrictions put on it? That's a very good question. So I've been torn. You know, I see both sides of the coin on the multi-boxing argument as a pay-to-win feature. So first and foremost, let me clarify that there will be absolutely no pay-to-win in the game from an advantage standpoint that can be purchased by an individual character. And what that means, and what I've been just absolutely livid about in the previous games I played, and just let me give you an example.
Tá travando aí, galera, na
Players are
live?
directed to form an in-game economy. Companies in the past that I have played MMOs with have introduced game mechanic influencing items. So I'll just give you an example. I'm not going to.
Esse cachorro aí. Agora tá liso, beleza.
Very early on in one game that I played, there was
aos poucos a gente vai.
Ele tá falando sobre o arcade agora, cara. Tipo, que não vai ser pay to win igual arcade.
Ele só não fala quanto que ele gastou no arcade, né, esse viado.
Não fala.
Beleza, galera, beleza. Vamos ajeitando aí. Desculpa aí a falha aí, técnica. Mas do nada... Do nada não. Essa porra do OBS eu tive que botar pra rodar na integrada. E aí não tava dando certo.
Acontece, ao vivo é assim mesmo.
It had a very high value because it was such a rarity. The game creators decided that they would introduce in the pay shop
ele tá falando da sementezinha lá do que tu plantava lá, que tinha quase 80% de chance de cair uma Thunderstruck.
Sim.
Players spent a large time creating infrastructure around in order to generate their income, and it flooded the market with that particular resource. That is a huge example of a terrible, terrible idea when it comes to implementing pay-to-win mechanics into a game. Additionally, I am also against pay-to-convenience. I consider pay-to-convenience when it comes to, let's say, inventory items or slot spaces. I think that those are also an advantage that the character.
Ele também acha pay-to-convenience é coisa que ajuda as pessoas.
Pay to win, pay to win também, tipo pay to fast também.
Multi-boxing. That's a little bit difficult for me because it could be conceived as pay to win because you can progress on a second character and you can then gift that progression to your primary character. In that scenario, yes, I can see the argument. However, if the character progresses with the same amount of effort and time needed by the
pelo jeito o multibox vai ser permitido.
And they maintain that progression on that character, then I don't consider it pay to win. I consider it a second account. So initially what I'm going to say is
vai ser permitido.
Having multi-boxing capability will be allowed within Ashes of Creation. There are a few safety nets that I put in place that kind of.
Só tem que saber se não vai ser muito pesado para fazer, né?
Uses that we've seen in other games happens. For example, the freehold system, which is a primary arc in the processing artisanship tree, can only have one freehold per account. So it's not going to be like other games where your character can have 3 or 4 or 5
Cada conta vai poder ter só um território, uma casa.
Tá bom.
Isso é muito bom.
And then additionally, one other concern before I'll move on to the next subject. One other concern on multi-boxing is it's very difficult to implement restrictions and enforcement around multi-boxing because there are, I mean, you can have IP restrictions, however, there are families and accounts that play together.
Porra, só aquele luxo do cara ali paga.
A wide net that can be cast there, which can
paga um ano no meu aluguel.
In enforcing the multi-boxing rule. So it's a little bit difficult in that regard as well. So that's my multi-boxing answer. Okay, Frozen asks, again from Frozen. There are concerns that costumes bought from the cash shop will hide someone's real gear, making it difficult to tell how powerful their character is in PvP. Will there be an option to turn off other people's cosmetics in the game? So that's a two-point question. One, when it comes to player threat assessment, you will be able to target a player and very quickly at a glance.
O mesmo buffzinho. Então vai ter o mesmo buff do arcade, tipo se é arcano, se é pano, se é leather plate.
And then you will also see a border around that gear that gives you an idea of the tier and quality.
Ele tá pegando bastante exemplos para botar no App
Porra, mas foi o que ele jogou, né? Ele jogou arcade, cara.
Pegou bastante ideias lá.
And that the level of gear they're having is, you know, tier whatever, and it is enchanted or something based off just a very quick glance. So that's the first thing. With regards to turning off cosmetics, previously, I had mentioned that there is going to be what we call a default player appearance. And the primary reason for having default player appearance is not to turn off cosmetics. It is to help the player client render multiple targets
sistema do arcade de novo, com o default, né, o costume default para todo mundo, para renderizar mais rápido.
Is that we're going to enable that option when there is a certain number of rendered clients within range or at specific events. And the reason for that is because cosmetics, whether purchased from the shop or earned in-game, are an important component of MMORPGs. You know, I personally enjoy, and there's a lot of collectors out there who spend a great deal of time either in-game achieving these things or spend money purchasing them from the cosmetic-only marketplace. And we don't want to
é legal, cara. Ó, pelo que ele tá falando, vai ter achievements que tu ganha costumes, tu consegue costumes de outro jeito no jogo, além só do cash shop. Então tem outros modos de tu conseguir costumes, achievements.
O Geborg está perguntando se tem ideia de quanto tempo para lançar. Ele falou alguma coisa?
Não,
não falou nada ainda.
Eu acho só ano que vem.
I'll refresh after this so I can make sure that the top votes are counted. Have you decided yet what happens to a player, caravan, if they are in the middle of a trip and have to log off or get DC'd?
Agora, por exemplo, se tu tá transferindo teus equipamentos de uma cidade para outra e tomar DC, o que vai acontecer?
Na caravana.
No. So there will be a time delay that starts ticking when the caravan logs off. And that time delay
vai ter um delay de 5 a 10 minutos só, que vai ficar no safe, provavelmente, se tu tomar DC.
First of all, well, I'm sorry, hold on. That's a different point. That's for the mule thing. For the caravan specifically, if you are disconnected or log off,
não, ele
the
errou.
caravan will persist.
A caravana vai continuar no mundo. Mesmo se tu tomar DC, vai estar lá. Então, ou seja, faz com seus amiguinhos para ajudar a defender.
Okay, let me refresh real quick. I'm sorry.
É a mesma coisa no barco, né?
Caiu, filho.
Caiu.
See if there have been different votes applied. Okay, FT86, we answered that one.
Comprei um PC de 20k para jogar New World, juro. Por culpa de vocês, então tratem de... Calma, Borges. Calma que até ano que vem esse PC vai continuar bom pra caralho.
Aceito doações também, tá?
That is awesome. I would love for you to roleplay that as well.
Porra, essa aguinha aí é 500 conto a garrafa. Quem que foi? Quem apagou a mensagem ali? Colocou o cara louco. Consegue atirar ele aí, Noah?
Ele escreveu em caps lock.
Tá, mas bota ele como... Calma aí, bota ele como VIP. Pera aí, ele não tá com VIP, não?
Não.
Tá,
ele é sub.
Não, vou botar VIP. Vou botar aqui, ó, barra VIP. Cara louco. Pronto. Ah, não, você tem que primeiro tirar o banimento. Tira lá o banimento, não. Porque se eu for dar alt tab aqui, pode cagar tudo.
Peraí.
Tira o banimento dele e depois dá um barra VIP, cara louco. Que aí ele não sofre essas punições de chat.
Tirei, vamos ver.
Dá um barra VIP, cara louco aí.
Barra VIP. Cari.
Okay, next question.
Isso.
Voltou. Minha internet caiu de novo, cara. Ela tá caindo, é o cabo que tá ruim. Trocar de cabo depois da live.
Or will have very mitigated healing for other party members also. And just to give context there, again, the purpose of secondary archetypes in the augment system is to blur the line a little bit with the class roles. So while we're following a traditional Trinity type system in class roles, we are utilizing the secondary augment system to allow players to move the dial a little bit in one direction with the augments. Okay, Frog P asks, how will food consumption work in this game? As in,
como a comida funciona no jogo, ele vai falar.
Super excited for the project Godspeed Intrepid. Thank you, Frog P. Appreciate that, buddy. So food consumption. Food consumption will act in certain ways. So first of all, the higher quality the food based on the cooking profession that a player excels in, the greater potential for the buff's duration. In addition,
então, quanto a qualidade maior, mais buff fica, mais tempo.
Mas aumenta a duração dos buffs.
So, for example, if you have a completed dish and you process that dish inside of, let's say, an oven that has to be constructed and placed within a certain grade home, you can increase the effects as well.
Mas se tu craftar aquele prato dentro de uma casa, o buff também aumenta. Tu não precisa ter a qualidade alta também. Tem um bar que também consegue.
Players who are visiting the area doing hunting quests can visit the tavern, eat food if it's available, and they will receive a greater buff that is proximity based. Essentially, if they hunt around that person's business, they will receive the benefit of the buff.
Eu não entendi.
Então é o seguinte, se você estiver fazendo hunting quest, né, quests de caça, e você passar por uma taverna, se tiver uma comida lá nessa taverna e você comer, o buff vai ser melhor se você estiver ao redor daquela taverna. Se você tiver
área.
Vai ser uma área em volta e você vai se beneficiar desse buff.
Mas uma taverna no meio do nada, por exemplo?
Deve ser, no meio das coisas deve ter umas cidades, algumas tavernas.
There's a lot of question there. So, let's see. Starting experience, artisan gameplay, and guild related. Let's go with one of these questions.
Pronto, o cara é louco, tá como VIP.
Will players be required to play through the starting zone after coming out of the divine portal, or will they be allowed to branch out and proceed to other areas?
Digita alguma coisa lá, cara é louco, pra ver.
Ele foi no banheiro.
Railroaded driven theme park experience here.
Aí, boa.
You will have the opportunity to.
Eu vou trocar esse ícone do VIP, eu já até peguei um ícone novo, vou trocar hoje. Só não achei aonde que troca ainda.
Nor do you have to participate
in, lá na... Tá, depois eu vejo, né?
Experiences around the starting area. Now, it may be more beneficial to do that, and in that regard, I guess there could be a meta around doing that, but you could branch out, proceed to other areas, and do different content. It really comes down to, I had a question, I remember one live stream where player said, listen, day one, what's my
Esse cachorro da casa dele tá foda, né, Noah?
Tá
O cara com a casa desse tamanho, em vez de botar o cachorro lá no canil, o cachorro fica latindo aí.
Cara, tá complicado.
Foda. Olha lá.
If you want to go with your guild and try to establish an area as a crossroad or an encampment far away from the starting area, you could do that. If you want to, get your adventuring class as fastly leveled as possible, you can do that as well. If you want to get a grab on the gatherables that are in the world and develop tools so that you get access to, higher gatherables first, you can do that as well. It's really kind of your choice here. Let me answer one from the artisan gameplay question section. What is the team's vision on the scarcity of resources for gatherers? Will these be one-time use resource nodes that are only tapped by the first player there?
Isso é interessante.
Isso aí é bom saber, hein?
The idea behind the resource system is a few different applications here. First of all, yes, there will be some resources that are one-time gatherables, and then will randomly spawn at a different location. However, there are also large vein gatherables, and this essentially is a system where a resource node will have multiple access to gathering from it. It will have a finite number, and this will likely attract a lot of players to kind of come and access that resource node. So like a large mine that's present and has a vein of mithril ore in it, or a herd of, some type of animal that you can collect fur or wool from.
Então, pelo que eu entendi, vai ter minério que várias pessoas podem minerar ou coletar.
Isso aí ele tá fazendo igual do Crowfall. Vão ter minérios gigantes e vão ter minérios que só uma pessoa pega.
Eu tive que mutar a galera aqui que tava...
O Vieira Mike falou que é um chroma key atrás dele. Pode ser mesmo.
Será? Se tivesse, o cachorro já tinha derrubado, né?
Pode crer. Não é não, Vieira. Passou um cachorro ali, pô. O cachorro veio andando e passou do lado dele ali.
Só se o vídeo que ele pegou no YouTube tem um cachorro passando. Né?
Pode ser um chroma key de um vídeo.
Because I answered the first question, the other two will answer the second question. One of the issues a guild of our size has experienced during various launches has been server lockouts, where a server population reaches critical and a decision is made to lock the server, essentially forcing a separation of the guild. Of the guild. Decision made to lock the server, essentially forcing a separation of the guild. While we understand the overwhelming loads that launches place on server infrastructure can't be predicted, at the very least, if there is a contingency plan to separate the population, will this be communicated well in advance so guilds can plan ahead? And will there be a server transfer system in place to help address this issue? So, first of all, I was a guild leader of a very large guild.
Lá, começou. Very White guild. Order.
And, I built that community up over a period of 14 years, 15 years. We had I think we had like 14,000 members or something on our mailing list at one point. And I did step, just to be clarified, so there's no conflict in interest, as a result of starting Intrepid and the Ashes project, I stepped down as leader and exited the guild, so there would be no conflict of interest. But to answer your question, 100% I understand the absolute travesty that occurs sometimes on new MMO launches when those types of decisions get made from the company. One of the things that I would like to introduce that is going to be rolled out probably during the beta phases is allowing server reservations.
Isso é bom.
And essentially this provides an opportunity for players who are parts of guilds to reserve their spots on the server.
Isso é bom.
I think that will help to mitigate the differences because let me just back up a second.
Então, a pergunta foi o seguinte, a pergunta foi, por exemplo, a maioria dos jogos que a gente joga entra num determinado servidor e não são todos os membros da guilda que se cadastraram para aquela guilda conseguem entrar. Vai ter alguma coisa que possa, que não vai haver isso, que não vai ter um limite de players ou algo do tipo, e daí vai ter a reserva daquele char, do teu char no servidor. Tu consegue reservar o teu char naquele servidor quando abrir, mesmo quando tu não puder logar. Por exemplo, abriu agora, tu não consegue logar, mas está reservado teu spot lá, entendeu? Então não vai ter perigo de tu ficar sem um lugar naquele servidor.
The player who is just joining the game fresh and doesn't have a community that they're part of, I don't think they really, mind in that regard, and will not utilize that system. So hopefully that mitigates some of the stuff. But let me tell you this.
Sistema legal.
Obviously, as we go through testing, alphas and betas and whatnot, the importance of player feedback and ideas that come from the community, I can't stress enough why it is so important to spread the word for Ashes and get people who have experiences in other MMOs coming and talking to us, coming on the forums, getting on our Discord, getting on social media, and giving feedback. It is so important. And I'm not talking about, pre-ordering the game. I do not care if people pre-order the game. It doesn't affect.
É o que eu sempre falei, ele não tá nem aí pro dinheiro, mano.
Então, que libere mais kits pra nós jogar, ué.
I'm personally funding the project to completion.
Eu já tô até em tudo.
Viu o que ele falou? Eu tô financiando a porra toda.
And discussing their experiences and also giving feedback on our design principles. That's what's important.
Até porque vai ter mensalidade, né?
I can't stress that enough. Okay, and to be fair, by the way, I get a lot of messages. I read a lot of the Discord, and I go on Discord often and talk with people. I jump in voice chat sometimes. I watch almost every content creator who creates content around the game when I'm like getting in bed and holding my phone up and watching, and I fall asleep and my phone hits my face sometimes. But it's my job to make sure I have a very clear and understanding of the community sentiment as well as the community's feedback. So please go and talk about your experiences and give us feedback. It's very important. Okay, next question. From Sentinel. Question. Have you decided yet what happens to... Oh, sorry, I already asked that. Okay, here we go. Draco is the king. Is Draco the king? Are you going to capture one of the castles, Draco? Hopefully, we'll see. I heard that the character creation should be on the level of BDO character creation. I really did love BDO's character creator.
Perguntou se o tipo de customização do caráter vai ser igual ao Black Desert.
I thought that they did a great job in providing a lot of versatility to the player to customize the character appearance. I think the one thing I would, as a player and as now a developer, kind of focus on is maybe providing a little bit more confines to the racial appearances that could be done, but I thought that they provided really cool character creator. Will it have all of
não respondeu, ele falou que...
Não respondeu, só falou que vai limitar.
I'm assuming you're referring
Pelo que eu entendi, ele vai limitar para não sair muito fora daquela raça. Só isso. Pelo que eu entendi.
Additionally, there will be the goal is to have a character creator on par, if not much better than what BDO provided. I really give a hats off to their developers in making that character creator. They did a great job with that. Oh, one other thing about that. I really would love to give out early our character creator, and some games have done this as well.
Pra nós, ó.
Get the character creator out early so that
que o
players
Arcade
can spend
fez.
time making and
Eles vão liberar a criação de personagem antecipada para quando lançar o jogo você já ter o seu personagem pronto. Como o Arcade fez.
Pra te não perder tempo, né?
And they can jump into the game very quickly.
Legal. A ideia é legal, eles vão tu vai reservar o teu spot no server, tu vai ter o teu char criado já, é só logar, mano. Se duvidar, até o teu nome também vai estar reservado.
And we would be just waiting for the server to go live. It's live. It's live. It's live. And people would joke and they would, they'd say it's live and everybody would freak out and obviously they're trolling us. But the goal I know there is to get into game as quickly as possible. And having that function, I think, is an important one with the character creator. Okay, question from Efren and Verde about the inventory system. How limited will it be, and will there be ways to enhance the capacity? Also, what advantages does sending a caravan get over just coordinating a bunch of people to fill their
Pergunta é o quanto limitado é o inventário no jogo.
To the goal. Well, okay, let's answer the first one. The initial capacity will be relatively limited. However, there will be specific items that can be achieved within the game based off of the progression of the node system, as well as certain quest lines that can be utilized to grant inventory slot expansions.
Como você vai fazendo as quests, você vai aumentando
It's important to note that because
capacidade.
The inventory does include sections that are relevant both to quest items. The quest items will not fill your
legal.
non-quest
Os
items.
Os itens de quest não vão ocupar espaço no seu inventário. Vai ser um inventário separado.
Isso aí é ótimo.
That fill your inventory capacity that's non-quest items. So that is one thing I will say. And then the second thing is it's important to note that you will so the capacity that a character can have of raw gatherables or processed materials can also be expanded up to a point. Additionally, you will have a certain type of mule that can be utilized to carry additional goods that you can summon if you're going to, gatherables, if you can summon that and take that back to the warehouse depository.
Legal.
But essentially, to answer your question with regards to caravans,
tu vai ter tipo uma mula, burrinho que tu summona, bota as coisas lá dentro e summona e depois tu pode guardar no
You could
banco.
potentially transfer out raw resources and gatherables and try to maximize a number of friends kind of moving goods through the world. But at that point, you have to realize there's going to be certain risks associated with that. And the capacity to do so, you would need a lot of friends to match the capacity that the caravan has. Also,
caravana vai ter bastante capacidade.
Pra roubar uma dessas,
vai roubar uma caravana full.
To successfully completing trade routes. There are non-player driven caravans that can be utilized by the towns.
Verdade, ser indigo. Sirius indigo. O hype do AOC vai aumentar por causa do alpha e porque New World deu pra trás. Deu pra trás mais ou menos. Vai ser bom, cara. Ergam a hashtag AOC Brasil. Vou lá escrever AOC Brasil.
And you may want to do that in exchange for a different type of resources. So there's a lot of unique benefits that are housed within the caravan system that require its usage, not just the benefit of the carrying capacity, which far exceeds that of a collection of friends. Yes. Okay, next question. From Jakuta TV. Good afternoon, Stephen. Good afternoon, Jakuta. I hope you're having a great day, my friend. As we come closer to Alpha 1 and eventually Alpha 2, will we start to see more about the archetypes and the augment schools for each second archetype? Absolutely. So there's two components to this question. One is we want to vet a lot of the design ideas, right, behind player feedback. That's what's so important. And on the flip side, we want to do so in a way that's structured as a rollout as we get into alphas and betas. It's important that that information gets distributed to players.
Please localizate prices for Brazilian players.
We don't ruin the discovery feeling that happens with a new MMORPG. As I've said in the past, transparency is a double-edged sword. On one side of that sword, at least when it comes to vetting our designs and being transparent with the development of the game, One of the sides of that is we ruin the discovery experience.
O cara perguntou pra mim lá, ó,
former designer from
se eu sei a data de lançamento.
Eu vi.
Big shout out to Peon,
Mikey.
to Lex, and to Unknown for helping
9988.
with that video. But the designer said, at the end, he's like, I'm very excited for this. And I believe he was one of the original designers for World of Warcraft. It was great to hear him say he was excited for this. But he also said, I almost don't want to watch any more of the development because I don't want to ruin the launch for myself. And we have to be cognizant.
A minha pergunta lá no...
It is an important point. While on one side of the sword, we want to vet our ideas, on the other side of the sword, we also don't want to ruin the experience for players. Now, alphas and betas, because we're not putting NDAs behind them, yes, that does speak with regards to confidence in the product. I do have a great amount of confidence, and part of that confidence is actually given from you
Perguntei
guys
se eu posso criar The White Order.
essentially, seeing how our philosophies resonate with you, it does give us more confidence, and that is great. But at the same time, one thing we're doing from a lore perspective is not really revealing any of that lore, especially in the alpha phases. Now, as we get into the beta, it's going to be necessary that those quest lines are implemented, and they're going to have the actual stories behind it. But in the alphas, some of that stuff is going to be sort of placeholder.
O que a gente tava comentando ontem, na real, sobre... Acho que a gente não tava em live, né? Tipo, tu jogar o alpha, beta, vai chegar no live e tu não vai ter aquele sentimento de descoberta mais do jogo e tudo mais. Então eles vão guardar muita coisa pro lançamento, pro beta e pro lançamento, pra você sentir, tem coisa ainda a ser descoberta no jogo, tem coisa que tu não sabe, pra ter aquela surpresa.
Okay. Question from, let me refresh, maybe. Should I refresh? Yeah, I should probably refresh here. It was on Wembley. Maybe it will be on Wembley still. Let's take a look. Oh, nope. Oh, there I am as Thanos in a meme. Yay. I don't want to kill anybody. Unless they have something I need. No, sorry. Okay, Wembley, let's see. I don't know where you are, Wembley. I apologize. Okay, here we go. Question from the Clo. Hey, Steve. Whoops, I probably shouldn't put that in front of the mic. Hey, Steve, how is it going? It's going well, Clo. Thank you for asking. My question is there a chance that the monthly subscription fee will be adjusted to other countries?
Acabou de responder aí, ó.
I'm from Brazil. Hello from Brazil.
Respondendo.
Actually, I'm from the United States. Hello from the United States. WoW costs USD $14.99, and that would cost the Brazilian currency $77 exchange for us. But for us, the price is adjusted, and we pay a $28, which is a $5 fee. So yes, that's called price harmonization. That's pretty standard in the industry when it comes to essentially a part of the localization process and distribution process in foreign territories, and I say foreign with regards to the United States, to harmonize the price for those territories. That is something that we will be doing with Ashes of Creation, with regards to the subscription fee specifically. However, it's important to note that price harmonization will only occur when the servers are segregated from different territory servers. So for example, a Brazilian player, if they were a subscription-based, they would have to pay that Harmony price for the Brazilian servers.
Então vai ter servidor no Brasil, pô.
Pelo que ele tá falando, sim.
O que ele quis dizer é o seguinte: se você for jogar no servidor do Brasil, você vai pagar o preço modificado. Se você for jogar no servidor americano, você vai pagar o preço americano.
The Nakua really need to get on top of that. So would it be harder to assault a Dunir city rather than a Nakua city? So the defensive capabilities of cities from a design perspective cannot really take into account the race. That would be an unbalanced feature and would create.
Agora tá falando defesa da cidade. Mas, pô, se tiver servidor no Brasil, vai ser top, cara.
What that means is essentially settlements have a standardized siege process, and their defensive capabilities are almost wholly determined by the
Vai ser isso aí,
direction
Netril.
that the citizens take with the election.
Vai ser mensalidade para jogar no servidor brasileiro mais barato.
Who has the ability to direct treasury funds generated through taxation and or completed quests that are initiated by the town, to direct those resources into defensive capabilities or growth capabilities. Essentially, that's a direction that has to be determined by the community itself. Now, if you're going to elect to spend those treasury funds on defensive things, you're going to lose out on the growth things, but you'll be a stronger city to withstand assault if necessary. And if you elect to grow your city more, you will likely lose out on the
Já volto, pegar uma água ali.
towards the defensive structures, such as strengthening the walls or the gates, or having defensive traps available, having defensive siege equipment upon the barricades, the ramparts, having essentially. Oh, another big thing is the reliquary. The reliquary is essentially a status symbol of achievements that the citizens have. Some of those can be utilized as area of effect buffs that are granted when deployed during sieges as well. So that's another important aspect of defensive posture. Okie dokie. Corrupt cactus. How does a cactus get corrupt?
Nome do cara.
That's a good question. Okay, so hey guys, super excited to see this project develop. And I wish you the best of luck. Thank you. I do have a few questions, but I would also like to give my opinion on some topics. Okay, well, let's do the question. Okay, who gets the drop from world bosses? So essentially, when a raid is formed,
Quem que recebe o drop
the
do
leader
World
of the
Boys?
raid that
Vamos ver.
is in charge or formed the raid has the opportunity to set loot distribution settings. And that can be a wide variety of available options, including specific loot master, and essentially they're going to determine how that works. Now, if you have two competing raids, that's going to be done essentially off of a tag and DPS system. So tagging the target will grant a slight benefit to DPS done, and then a DPS against the target is going to determine the looting rights, so to speak. So, for example, if you tag the target, you may only need to do 40% of the damage done, or some plurality thereof, to achieve looting rights. If you don't tag the target, you may need to do 60% of the damage done in order to do that. Now, it's always difficult to come up with a good loot system that is fair and addresses all kinds of situations. So that's a particular topic that I love to get feedback from other MMO players, and get your guys' ideas on those things as well. That's a great topic to get ideas from. Okay, I'm just going to stop it at that question because I see it's a very long post. Okay, here we go. Next question. The pie face. Hey, I have 4 questions. All right, well, let's take the first one. Anytime I look up the combat in this game, I end up with footage of the Battle Royale Apocalypse mode. Is the combat in Apocalypse the same as the action combat in the MMO? Okay, so to give some clarity on the Battle Royale mode, for those of you who are new and want to kind of understand what was the reason for the direction of the Battle Royale, essentially what we're trying to create in Ashes of Creation is a hybrid system of action and tab targeting. Now, obviously, they have very different tempos and speed, and it is difficult to mirror what feels like a comfortable pace for those two very different types of combat. Early on, and I'm talking like 2017, we got a lot of feedback from the community when it comes to combat, and rightfully so. I mean, combat is the most tactile component of an MMORPG. It's what you really, aside from the systems and mechanics, combat is what you must get right. It must feel good. It must be fluid. It must be mobile. That is a very important component of a successful MMORPG experience. And it's a very iterative process. one of the most iterative processes when it comes to developing a game. And the feedback we got very early on in the project was that, hey, this combat is not fluid. Hey, this combat doesn't feel good. And we needed to really test how to implement action combat and get metrics on essentially projectile data, hit scan data, hit boxes, area of effects, templated types attacks. Those are all, components that we wanted to collect data on, in addition to vetting the back-end systems that we had developed, from the matchmaker to the concurrencies, to the net relevancy and number of players that the server can manage, to the culling and rendering algorithms, the optimization of our environment and terrain, the optimization of our character appearances. All of those are pretty fundamental that really we wanted to vet early on. So a battle royale is a very easy mode to create. It doesn't really take a lot of design in order to implement, but it does provide a testing ground to kind of feel out those things. And we went down that road to test those things, and luckily we did, because we found a lot of systems and a lot of back-end stuff that we needed to rework. It would have been far more difficult had we waited until the alpha phase of the MMO to
Esculachou os Battle Royale, hein?
Fundamental.
Tu viu?
So the reason why you're seeing the combat in Apocalypse and how that will differ significantly from the combat within Ashes of Creation is because it is a purely action-oriented. That was the system we wanted to test in its purity. So it is going to be representative of a pure action type system, which is not going to be wholly representative of the hybrid type combat that we want to have in the MMORPG. Now, Alpha 1 will contain that hybrid type system, a very bare bones and early iteration of it, and through the data we collect by our players participating and giving feedback and watching the design metrics and the backlogs, we will utilize that to change. Now, one thing I'm going to say, and I'll actually reiterate this at the end as well. Game development is very difficult, very difficult. It's especially difficult for an MMORPG, and it's especially difficult for an MMORPG that is trying to be as ambitious as Ashes of Creation is. Now, the more difficult the development process, the more patience necessary on the side of the fans and the community. We're doing this in an open atmosphere and a transparent development process, but part of that is an expectation on behalf of the players, not only to give feedback, but also to have patience in that regard. What I will say is, as a commitment from the development side, we're not going to go down the path of scope creep. I have a very, very, very clear vision of all of the systems, designs, mechanics that are present within the game, and we're sticking to that vision. And we're not adding additional features and prolonging the development due to that scope creep, as we may have seen with other developments. No, not trying to dig at anybody else. I'm saying, that is something we're very aware of, we're very cognizant of, and that is a commitment we make. So in exchange for that patience, we promise not to incorporate that scope creep. Okay. Mike
Fala o nome do jogo de uma vez, não fica passando.
Says, hey Steven, thanks for doing this AMA. Thank you for participating, friend. As well as doing the interviews with Summit and Asmongold recently. I really enjoyed those interviews. They were impromptu. I actually had no idea that they were going to review the awesome video done by Peon. I'm a very kind of action-oriented individual. I believe in seizing the day, the carpe diem idea. I am unabashed in reaching out to people and letting them know.
A live do Asmongold tem mais live do que tem mais gente do que oficial. Tem 58 mil assistindo a Asmongold vendo a live e 5 mil vendo a live oficial.
So, with that being said, I did enjoy those interviews, and I appreciated very much the time that those streamers and other streamers who have a very large audience that have the capability of giving feedback have to say. They really have increased my excitement for the game, and I've been following for a long time. Cool. Regarding open world PvP, will a player's health and level be a mystery to me before I engage in a fight? Follow up. So first of all, the level will not be a mystery. The level will be known by targeting the player.
Ah, legal.
The health pool, however, unless you are in a party or a raid or a guild,
Falou que você vai conseguir ver o nível de qualquer um quando você dá o target nele.
will not be able to see
Mas
the
não vai
health
conseguir
pool
ver a
of the
vida.
target.
Sim.
Instead,
Tipo, o
that will
tamanho
be
da
somewhat
vida.
obfuscated. When you target the character, their nameplate will have a quality. And based on the loss of health percentage-wise, that nameplate will start to degrade. And you will get an idea of the damage and or status condition of the target, but you will not get granular data that tells you exactly what their health pool is. I think that's a very important component when it comes to obscuring somewhat the threat assessment and or status condition of players. I think that makes things more interesting. And I think that it is going to be a very fun component when it comes to PvP.
Ele falou que você não vai conseguir ver a vida do cara, mas conforme você vai batendo e ele vai perdendo percentual de life, o avatar dele vai como é que degradê, não, como é que é? Vai se desfazendo, sei lá, vai ficando cinza. Então você vai ter uma ideia mais ou menos de quanto que o cara é forte ou não.
Eu acho que eles vão fazer tipo um HP que não cai e aquilo ali vai mudando de conforme tu tá batendo.
Pode ser, né?
Particularly for PvP, will power difference be more reliant on gear or levels as we level up? I would say that the power difference is going to be somewhat equal between gear and levels. One thing I cannot stand about MMOs is that they apply a dampener to damage done or abilities if a target is outside of a certain level range. And that includes both PvE and PvP. If I have a skill that does 1,000 damage to a target of equal level, I don't want
Eu também, né,
skill
Trio?
to do
Vou
zero
botar pra
damage
baixar
to a
aqui.
target that's 5 levels
É
above
só acabar aí.
I like the idea
Baixar o
of
quê?
batting
O
outside
Past
of my weight
Fate.
class. I think that's a cool achievement
Tem o
factor.
Wall de Terra pra gente testar
It
também.
gives me motivation to try more difficult things. When I play, single player RPGs, I love Iron Mode.
Baixa rapidinho.
I think Iron Mode is awesome. And I think it's awesome because there's real consequence to trying something and real reward if you the same, I guess,
Noah falou do Wild Terra 2.
Isso.
Já saiu?
A gente ganhamos 2 keys pra testar o jogo e fazer um vídeo.
Ah, já ganhamos?
Já ganhamos.
Opa, então hoje à noite tem coisa pra jogar.
Tem muita coisa pra jogar.
Sim, aí sim.
That is cool.
Ok.
Next question.
Okay.
Arthian, you want to make travel matter? Or sorry, you want travel to matter? Sorry, I was making sure that I wasn't being told something on Slack. Let me just make sure that everything's fine with the stream. Okay, looks good. Okay, you want travel to matter, but you also mentioned that you'll have a family fast travel system. Doesn't traveling matter go out the window when players set up family links?
É o Wild Terra 2 que está em desenvolvimento, né, tio?
Families are... I'm sorry,
Isso. Não, é o primeiro que tá na Steam.
Primeiro tá na Steam, o segundo tá em desenvolvimento.
É na Steam também, só que não tá liberado ainda.
That's the first thing. Second of all, the summon system is contained wholly within the family unit. So for example, if I have a family size that's possible of 8 members, the same as a party size, and I want to summon
viu que ele deixou
one of them and
soltar aí?
basically the others, right? My
A
party
party vão ser de 8 pessoas em vez de 5.
Content relatively quickly.
Eu acho que a tua tá mais na frente que a minha. Agora que ele falou.
Who's a part of another family, right? So they'll have to either have a representative that's present there as well. The idea behind fast travel not being prevalent in Ashes is it's a mitigating factor to the Zerg mentality. So essentially, in games I've played, where you can open a portal and everybody can jump through the portal together, it becomes very difficult for players through the use of subterfuge to avoid zergs. And that's because if they get wind of something, or somebody sees it, or they have an alt logged out, or whatever, they can very quickly open a portal and get everybody, together and then port out.
Tá, deixa só ele falar como é que vai ser, que aí eu falo o que eu entendi.
Now, that's not to say that political intrigue will not play an important role. If I have a spy in a guild, and I know that guild is running essentially a trade run through the caravan system, and I know the time, place, and numbers, then I could set up a trap. I could set up my people to move to that location. It'll take some time. We want it to take some time. We don't want the ability of a Zerg.
Provavelmente não vai ter portal, não.
Pelo que eu tô vendo, acho que não também.
Tá, o que ele falou é o seguinte, o cara perguntou assim, como é que vocês vão tratar sobre armadilhas e emboscadas, não sei o quê. Aí ele falou que nos jogos que ele jogou, vem aí o Arcade, é muito fácil para quem tem Zerg, muita gente na guilda, se locomover pelo jogo. Então, se alguma coisa aconteceu em tal lugar, basta todo mundo entrar no portal, aparecer lá do lado e zergar quem tá lá. E ele falou que ele não quer isso, que ele quer que leve tempo para as pessoas chegarem nos lugares. Então, o exemplo que ele deu foi, se eu tiver um espião na guilda tal, eu souber que eles estão indo preparar uma caravana de um lugar para o outro, eu vou ter tempo para preparar o meu povo para ir se deslocar até lá. Então, provavelmente não vai ter portal para lá e para cá, não. Vai ser andando mesmo.
Vai ser tipo Black Desert.
Anyone may participate in that siege, which means, as long as you're not a citizen of the node or an alliance member, a citizen of an allied node, anybody can come up and participate. The idea behind a false flag is, let's say I want to undertake the quest process, which is substantial. So from a resource standpoint, you will have to invest significantly in attaining the siege scroll. And then if you lay down that declaration with the intent of not having an organized group of people, I'm not sure you're really mitigating the false flag there. Because let's say there were a group of people who wanted to siege, and...
Ai, susto, maluco. Obrigado pelo follow, Weeble. Meu susto agora tá com a musiquinha nova, mano.
Tem que baixar o som disso aí.
Mas é bom que dá uma acordada. Caralho, é outro, maluco. Que susto que eu tomei. Thunder Rock BR, obrigado pelo follow.
Ó, pessoal, dá sub aí que ele leva outro susto, hein?
Let us do Geist 1337. I used to live in, I grew up a little bit in Indiana, and I lived in a place called Geist. It was very interesting, outside of Indianapolis.
Geist.
And then I moved back to California. Born in San Diego, came back to California after that. Little side note. So to give context to the question and what I pray the answer will be, I want to preface it by saying I'm a huge fan of necromancy. I think necromancy is cool as well.
Ele é fã de um necromante.
Necromancy.
O que ele vai falar sobre?
Well, I guess mostly in an undead way. Specifically, the raising of fallen enemies as your personal undead. Because of that, I've played the class in every MMO. Okay, you really weren't kidding.
Vê se vai ficar muito lagado. Vou fazer um teste aqui. Caralho! Tomei outro susto, cara. Obrigado pelo sub, Kogo. Vocês são foda, cara. Deixa eu ver se eu consigo. Obrigado pelo sub. Você já vai estar concorrendo a um sorteio de uma conta do New World hoje mais tarde na live do G, viu? Já vai ter direito a um ticketzinho e também vai estar concorrendo amanhã a R$50 de crédito na Steam também.
Will be adherent to the Trinity class system. So you'll have a more tank-oriented type summon available to you, as well as a more support-oriented type summon, and a
Legal,
type
cara.
summon.
Vai ter vários tipos de summon.
Kind of wanna choose which
Summon
one
vai
you're
ter
going
summon
to
de
use at any
tanque,
given,
de suporte
encounter
e de
based on
DPS.
the necessity of the encounter. As you apply the cleric
Fica ligado, hein, Kogo, porque tá rolando uns sorteios também exclusivo para inscritos, e eu mando o sussurro pela Twitch. Então já teve casos de 3 caras ganharem e não me retornarem em 24 horas e eu sorteio de novo. Outra coisa que a gente vai pedir para fazer, a galera que tá inscrito aqui, entrar lá no nosso Discord, a gente dá a tag de inscrito, e sempre que for rolar algum sorteio ou resultado, eu também vou postar lá no Discord o @inscrito pra galera. Fala, War. Boa tarde. Se a live estiver travando nessa cena aqui, vocês me falam, tá? And granting it certain types of abilities that are temporary based off the skill cast. Or you will have more Surto, entra lá no Discord ou me manda um sussurro com o seu usuário do Discord. Ou entra lá. Escreve exclamação Discord aí, entra lá. Aí manda uma mensagem para mim lá, inscrito. But that's to give more information on the necromancer's side.
Ele já tá lá, já. Acabei de ver ele. Eu vou tirar aqui a permissão.
Já dá a tag, é.
Let us do... Oh, wow, it's 1:10. Okay. I think we'll do another... wow, this went by quickly. I think we'll do... I hope you guys are enjoying this. I don't normally do solo streams. I think this is my first one. I apologize if I'm boring you to death. I do much more enjoy the banter and interaction with having either a co-host or an interviewer. But yeah. Okay, Radiant Spark asks, the augment system is a key component of character progression and the driving force behind the selection of one's secondary archetype. Yes, that is true. Though some examples have been given, notably the fighter's charge ability, many in the community are still confused as to the significance of this choice. Interpretations range from each of the 64 classes entirely unique to augments and therefore secondary.
64 classes, né?
Impacting only the flavor.
Total, né?
I wouldn't say that that's true. Let's take, for example... Oh, let me finish, I guess, the question. Could you clarify the impact of the secondary archetype?
Só que cada classe ainda tem um archetype que você pode escolher, né?
So, let's take
é tipo a sub do Lineage 2. Eles pegaram um pouquinho do Lineage, eu percebi isso também. Quando eles falaram que não tava que tava dando problema na live, por exemplo, itens legendários só vai dropar de boys legendários. Ou seja, Lineage 2, a primeira coisa que eu pensei, tipo, joia do Buy 1, joia do Boys, entendeu?
Não vai ter loot table legendário se o mob não for legendário, então.
Isso.
Isso é bom.
Isso é bom, pô. E a primeira coisa que me veio na cabeça foi o Lineage 2, porque tem as joias boys que só dropa dos boys fodão, os legendários. E é uma briga pra matar aquele boys, cara. Isso vai ser legal.
And to be clear, by the way, active skills have different stages of skill allocation. So that initial rush skill may only require, 10 skill points to have that available.
Exatamente, D5. Pegaram o PVP do L2. Isso aí. Eu só não sei se vai dropar, cara. Será que vai ficar tipo... Se tu ficar vermelho igual o Lineage dropa, daí tu tem que matar mob pra tirar? Não sei ainda.
Instead of charging X distance over time, you immediately teleport to the target and you deal the X damage and condition modifier. So to clarify this question, it says it changes the flavor. That's not entirely accurate. So the design behind augments is to not just change the flavor so that it reflects the secondary archetype, but it also fundamentally changes the core components of a skill. So when you're charging towards a target, there's a lot of things that can happen during that time. You can be interrupted through a CC effect. There can be a battlefield wall that's deployed. The target can go invisible. The target could teleport away. You could be charging him for a period of time as he runs away from you, leading you into other opponents. that's a very susceptible state to be in a rush situation. Now, if you apply the teleport, that's just not flavor. You have completely removed all of those potential effects from occurring during the charge. And you instantly teleport to the target. That's a significant vertical power increase on the...
Ele tá falando da diferença de skills de teleporte e de dash, né? Que o dash você pode ser interrompido no meio e tal. Teleporte não.
Na verdade, ele tá falando a diferença, por exemplo, depois que tu pegar o archetype, o que vai acontecer com aquela skill. Então, às vezes, pelo que eu entendi, se for, no exemplo do L2, por exemplo, vai mudar um pouco a skill no sentido de componente. Por exemplo, a primeira skill, tu pode ser stunado. A segunda, tu não é stunado, tu não toma CC. E tu pode teleporta em vez da dash, ou... Enfim, muda um pouquinho a skill em si.
Good afternoon, Stephen.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, T2XS. First off, I would like to say that it is refreshing to see how much excitement and dedication you have had for Ashes since I have started following it. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Caralho, que susto, né, trio? Caralho, eu tenho que abaixar esse som. Obrigado aí, Nitrio, pelo sub, cara.
Deu sub? Valeu aí, Nitrio.
Vocês escutam o som, cara? Escutam, né?
MMORPG player, and I'm really driven to see something
Porra.
that I think reflects the sentiment of the community when it comes to creating a game. Yes. I can't help but look forward to the alpha in the next few months. Thank you. We cannot help either. For my question,
pulei da cadeira aqui.
The questing.
Ó o coração,
hein? Ó o coração.
Will there be cross-node quests? Yes, there will be cross-node quests. Those cross-node quests will come online more so when relationships get
Não entendi essa parada aí.
Eu também não. Cross-node quests. Então é tipo quests de nodes diferentes.
Deixa eu ver.
Pelo que eu entendi do jogo... Peraí, deixa eu ler.
É quando há algumas... Acho que tem a habilidade de ativar algumas quests que só dois nodes podem participar entre eles. São regiões do mapa, sim.
But also by the types of buildings that get constructed by the citizens through the allocation of resources and treasury funds. Are all quests available to those that meet the requirements? Quests available to those that meet requirements. Yes. By the definition of requirements, I believe those quests would be available if the requirements are met. Or in something like a hidden quest line, where only the first person be able to reach a certain stage, be able to complete the rest of the quest line. I see what you mean now. Okay. So on the
Conforme o node evolui, muda tudo, desde a cidade, quests, mobs e dungeons.
Nodes determine that they want to build a Scholars Academy. Or something else, that will provide certain quest lines. And within those organizations, there will be unique quest lines that the first to achieve a rank. Okay, so let me just give you an example. So let's say for a certain temple in a node, the highest title that can be achieved is, bishop or cardinal or, some other term based on the type of temple it is and the deity it reflects. The first person to climb the ladder in that system will be able to attain that title, and there can only be one who holds that title at a given time.
Isso é legal,
so
hein?
in that regard, yes, there are quests that exist where only one person and the first to get there can achieve it, and then there will be maintenance. There will be opportunities for others to potentially take it. Now, the benefit of that type of title is during node sieges or node events, certain titles will have special abilities. They'll be able to do special things during a siege or an event. So as a bishop, you may have access, when these events or sieges come online, a secondary hotbar that provides you with those abilities. You may get additional hit points. You may have additional damage.
Bem legal esse sistema
aí. A leader amongst your citizens in that regard. And that would be true for the mayor as well and other positions.
Consigo.
Boy, I put water next to me, and I also put some tea. But I didn't drink any, and now
Aí que foi aumentar o volume e fudeu aqui, ó lá.
Okay.
Fudeu a live.
Next question. What is the philosophy behind the cash shop? And how will it not destroy a pillar of MMO's visual progression? That's a good question. So let me talk about this for a little bit. When it comes to monetization and business model, I believe that the quality of a product should speak for itself, and in that regard, that is why I'm confident in the subscription system.
Sim,
It's also why I'm confident in not providing a box cost for the game. There's two reasons for that. One, and I'll talk about the cosmetic shop in just a second. I need to lay the foundation for the reasoning. So, a box cost is a high barrier of entry. Sometimes too high, and I believe in some cases too greedy as well. That's why I don't want to have a box cost.
Só vai ter o sistema de mensalidade. Tu não precisa comprar o jogo. Vai ser free to play, entre aspas, mas tu tem que pagar a mensalidade.
Is a lot of fun, especially when there's interconnected systems that provide interdependencies between different demographics of players, whether they be PvP-oriented, role-play-oriented, PvE-oriented, crafting-oriented, right? There's many different sub-communities within the MMORPG demographic. So you want to have a large influx of players. I think a sub-cost provides both the barrier of entry to prevent some...
Caralho, maluco. Aí o cara pediu pra eu aumentar a porra do volume.
But it's also not too high.
Mutirabanada, obrigado pelo follow aí, cara.
A lot of players from participating trying the game. And then if the game is good, then people will continue to subscribe. And that subscription provides funding and revenue for the developers to continue a significant content creation and expansion rollout for the game, because content is king and content needs to be developed, and that requires...
Chegou bandido aqui em casa, mano.
Okay, so that's
aparece aqui.
Subscription.
Olha o Henrique, maluco.
So the,
tá tacando a sobrancelha, maluco.
Puta que pariu.
There is a differential.
Caralho, maluco.
Okay, so first of all, let me say
Meu
this.
Deus, que isso, cara?
God, I hate calling out games. But you call out BDO. BDO does great
mandou
things.
cortão aqui, ó.
It's a very good, well done game. But one thing I can say about BDO.
Ó, cara, tô ligando pra polícia.
Is that you look like trash unless you spend money in the cosmetic shop. That sucks, to be fair, and take that feedback obviously with a grain of salt. However, what I would say is in Ashes of Creation, there is going to be legendary cosmetics that can be earned and achieved in the game, through the game systems. But that's going to take a significant amount of effort and work, okay? And that is those cosmetics are going to be on par with the cosmetics offered in the marketplace, okay? Now, with that being said, there are different types of players that exist within MMOs. There are casuals and there are hardcores.
Sim, lógico.
Not as unfortunate as this is to say, we as a demographic, as an MMORPG community, we are an aging group of people. And
confesso para vocês que tá hypado no S. Gostei muito do Battle Royale do ponto de vista de mecânicas de combate. Inclusive, eles compartilharam meu post. Espero que em 2022 que esteja pronto. Porra, vai ser bom mesmo.
So, the key is to provide both the in-game means to look...
Puta que pariu. Aí sim! Gabrig 491421, obrigado pelo follow.
Revenue to the company so that we can continue to fund the development of content as well and bridge the
Hell yeah, let's dance.
Not having a box cost.
Deixa eu só falar de um sistema que ele falou um tempo atrás, que a gente acabou que não comentou.
Eu tô anotando aqui algumas coisas.
Beleza.
Falar depois.
Tá. Todo node, né, todo território vão ter alguns cargos com títulos interessantes. E ele deu exemplo de um E quem pegar, quem seguir o caminho e pegar aquele título ali, só vai ter uma pessoa que vai conseguir pegar aquele título durante um tempo. Depois vão ter outras mecânicas para outras pessoas tirarem esse título desse cara. Só que, por exemplo, cada título, cada posto desse, vão dar habilidades, vão dar benefícios. Um benefício que ele deu exemplo, o cara ganha uma segunda barra de skills. Então o cara que tiver esse título, ele vai poder usar mais skills do que quem não tem. Interessante pra caramba.
Yes. Okay. Next one. Will shipbuilding be available for coastal freeholds? No, not for freeholds.
Um negócio aqui no...
So shipbuilding is a part of the craft
Aceita aí no Discord,
artisanship, which means that the ability to shipbuild as a profession is housed within the development of nodes, right? So those crafting stations come online the higher you go. Now, nodes that are coastal will have a hook to harbor systems that exist on the coast. So the node may not be on the coast, but it's going to be near the coast. And when it advances, it's going to spawn assets along the coast. That's the harbor. And also have, you know, hooks for quests and whatnot. That harbor station will have the craftable stations for shipbuilders to go and utilize blueprints to construct different classes of ships. Now, the higher the node becomes, the access they have to construct specific types of shipbuilding stations. And players will then be given access, the shipbuilding crafters will then be given access to construct higher type class of ships. And to be clear, you will not need to be a shipbuilder profession to construct ships. The shipbuilder profession, particularly, they have the ability to craft components of the ships, which increases the ship's capabilities, defenses, speeds, turn rate, offense and defense, you know, all those types of things. And then they can sell those to other players just as you would any profession. Okay. I think what we'll do is I'll take one more question.
Vai responder mais uma pergunta.
And then I will, because we're 25 minutes over, that's okay though. Let me see if I can find a really good one. Okay. A very good one. Let me see. This is, of course, subjective, but...
Pra quem não sabe, esse aqui do lado é o Noah.
I'm so sorry.
Noah também é cabeça do Startzone Games. A gente toca o projeto junto, tanto Twitch quanto YouTube.
Considering other AAA MMORPGs have a
content route
at endgame that takes months for the developers to add additional raid or zones only for it to be cleared and farmed in a few weeks, how is Ashes going to create enough content for 103 nodes at differing levels in the next 2 years? I don't even think WoW has that many raid zones, and it's been in active development for 17 years. So, okay, that's a very good question. So there's a few things there. First of all, the way that nodes are constructed in relation to the points of interest that exist within the world, multiple nodes they all won't advance together, right? The node structure locks out other nodes, okay? Nodes influence the surrounding points of interest. They change spawn tables of the types of monsters. They change
Thunderdog, ele era líder da The White Order. A gente jogou na época contra eles.
This is just talking about curated content. I'm not even talking about the player-driven content. Keep that aside for a second. So on the curated front, we're not creating 103 different zones per se. What we are doing is we are creating
Vou precisar me juntar, já baixei o Past Fate. Boa, a gente vai jogar depois, quando acabar a live. Vou botar pra baixar depois da live.
Espera a gente ir, vamos jogar junto.
Vamos jogar junto todo mundo.
Change is PvP-related systems that destroy those player-constructed nodes. and change and allow other nodes to advance, which replaces that content with different content that you haven't experienced before. So that's one thing about the node system. However, I have always said that the sandbox element of MMORPGs has often been used as an excuse not to create a lot of curated content, to cut down
aí sim vai fazer
the
churrasquinho,
production
nem
time
chama,
necessary for MMORPGs.
Tem grupo do WhatsApp,
to
tem.
lay the responsibility on the player-driven mechanics.
A exclamação Discord tem lá no Flow. Ou exclamação Flow.
My favorite books
Porra, Jampa,
that
chegou
I used to
atrasado,
read as a
hein?
kid, right, were those, you know, the choose your own adventure books. The Goosebumps had them, and they were all different types. I thought those were the best books because it involved you in the story.
É boa.
The nodes essentially are
Amanhã é aqui o
intended to
churrasquinho.
involve you in the story. You
Não
are
usa o
choosing
Telegram,
your
a gente até
adventure
tem o Telegram,
when, as a
cara,
community,
mas
you build the world.
Não estamos
não
usando.
estamos usando,
That's,
não.
that's the important
Estamos usando mais
aspect
o,
of really,
o WhatsApp
in order for
da
a
Deathlock.
sandbox to work, it must have
Eu também
equitable
acho.
or
A gente
more,
pode passar a
in
usar
some
exclusivo
cases,
da Twitch, quem sabe.
curated content than a theme park style game does. Now, that does create a significant responsibility on the content creation side for developing the game. We feel pretty confident that we're going to create a substantive and meaningful content experience from that regard.
Telegram.
So yes, that's to answer that question. Guys, I'm again really appreciative of you guys tuning in. I'm so happy to see the feedback and the just the sheer excitement from the MMORPG community at large. I know we've had our fair share of criticism, and it's not unwarranted. I gave the analogy of MMO players being like a beat dog. And I love my dogs, and I love my fellow MMO players. So I understand the skepticism that comes with new games, but we are dedicated to creating a quality experience in the form of player-driven feedback and sentiment in our community. And you being a part of this journey means every ounce of motivation to us as developers, to creating this game, to making sure that it answers the call that the MMORPG community has demanded over the past decade. And it's high time that this happens. So if there's one thing I would give to you as a call to action, it's don't tell people to buy the game. They don't have to pre-order the game. Sit back, watch, but tell them to get involved. Spread the word for Ashes of Creation. Go out there and tell your friends that you're excited about this or you like the ideas, if you do, and tell them to come join the Discord. Follow our social media. Come and be a part of the forums. Get out there and help make Ashes a reality, and a good reality that takes into account that feedback that I'm talking about. It's so incredibly important that consumers use their voice, and the way you do that is by engaging. And that is
então
what
bora dar
matters.
engage lá no Discord
I
deles
know
lá.
that people love my passion. I am a very passionate MMO player. I've been playing for a long time. But honestly, it comes from the heart. You know, I want us to succeed, and I want the community to have a game that is going to make you proud and is going to make us proud. So again, I appreciate you guys jumping in. I hope that this was fun for you and gave you guys some more information. Tune into our live streams. We do them every month. I believe we have it next week on the 31st as well. We show constant
dia
updates
31
and
provavelmente
constant development
outra
progress.
live.
We've done it every month for the past 3 years. And you can see this game grow and become a reality. Guys, I thank you for tuning in, and we love you from the studios, and we appreciate your support. Have an awesome weekend.
Sarindigo, para mandar sussurro, você clica lá em cima na tua Twitch. Lá em cima num chatzinho.
Acabou!
Dia 31 é a live de progresso do desenvolvimento. Vamos tentar fazer isso aqui de novo, né?
Vamos tentar fazer isso aqui de novo.
Deixa eu botar um...
Vai ser no final de semana, provavelmente.
A única coisa que eu tô achando pouco é a capacidade que eles falaram do server. 10 mil players. Porra, 10 mil players é gente, cara.
É bastante gente, cara. Às vezes é pouco, mas é muita gente, cara.
Vai ficar tocando a musiquinha
Tá
deles
bem.
aí? Pera aí. Vou botar a nossa musiquinha aqui. Beleza. Então vou fazer o seguinte, eu vou baixar aqui o Past
Manda o link aí pra
Fate.
mim baixar.
Vou te mandar, peraí.
Só uma coisinha que eu vou falar que teve do começo, que eu até anotei aqui.
Comenta aí.
Os archetypes são as classes, né? Tem a classe e a subclasse que seria o archetype. Então os archetypes que tem rogue, eles têm habilidades de achar tesouros e portas escondidas em dungeons. Isso aí eu achei muito legal. Então os rogues têm essa habilidade especial de encontrar tesouros adicionais do que já tem na dungeon que qualquer um pode encontrar. E os rangers têm a habilidade de encontrar traps, que é armadilhas, no caso. Então, se a dungeon tem armadilhas e coisa, os rangers vão ter essa habilidade de encontrar, avisar pra PT e se esquivar da armadilha, ou enfim. E ele só falou desses dois, falou um pouco do Summoner, que eu achei legal.
Tu desligou
também.
tua câmera?
Não, tá ligada.
Tá, peraí. Vou colocar.
Eles
Pode falar.
Eles falaram um pouquinho do Summoner também, que eu achei legal, pelo fato de tu poder summonar 3 tipos de mob, que é o DPS, suporte e tanque. Então, vai depender muito da onde tu tá e pra que você precisa, né? Se tu quer pra dano, tu bota um DPSzão lá e fica dando dano. Se quer uma coisa mais tanque pra fazer uma dungeon, o teu tanque não é suficiente, bota o summon de tanque, né? Achei bem legal isso aí também. Os títulos também ficaram legal, cara. Os títulos ficaram muito da hora. E os
Agora vai.
crossnodes ali.
Fala aí.
E os crossnodes ali que eles estavam falando, ele falou bastante dos crossnodes, né? Do Node. Então, o Node é o seguinte, pelo que eu vi em outras lives e tudo mais, até em outros vídeos, ele funciona. Os nodes eles funcionam de ranks. Então, cada node tem um rank específico, né? Rank 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 e assim vai. Então, os players que estão fazendo quest naquele rank, por exemplo, tá um rank 1, eu tô fazendo quest com infernos. Conforme a gente vai fazendo, terminando as quests, ajudando aquele node, esse node vai subir de rank. Subindo de rank vai aumentar a dificuldade dos mobs, vai vir mobs diferentes, e o node também, a aparência vai alterar. Eu achei isso aí genial. Pô, é top. Tipo, é muito diferente do que tem hoje, entendeu? É muito legal.
Seu Lolo tá aí no chat, seu Lolo? Saulo Lolo. Eu vou tentar mandar aqui o seu... Não. Como assim? Não. Este.
Um adendo, pode falar aí, Sirius. Qual que seria o adendo?
Tô mandando aqui o prêmio de cinquentinha pro Saulo Lolo. Insira uma assinatura para o seu...
Tu tem que adicionar, né? O estilo de arquitetura do Node vai ser determinado pela raça.
Não tô entendendo qual é desse...
Você contribuir com mais
aqui.
X pra ele. Ah, sim, tem a raça também, né? Então vai depender quanto a raça daquele node, maior XP recebe, né? Se aquele node for orc, por exemplo, e o orc estiver fazendo, maior recebe. Cara, eu achei muito legal, cara, o sistema deles. Achei muito legal mesmo. E assim, cara, no meu ponto de vista, tá? No meu ponto de vista, Noah falando. Vai ser muito melhor que o New World, cara. Pelo que eu tô vendo
Sei
assim.
não, hein?
Cara, o New World tá muito cru, mano. Se eles não mudar isso aí, Não vai, cara.
Cara, mas New World, você vai jogar New World, você vai jogar um ano de New World e isso aí não vai ter lançado ainda.
Não, sim, beleza. Mas, cara, eu acho que não tem, cara.
Eu que não
É um
lembro minha senha
sistema...
do PayPal.
É foda, hein?
Aí sim, garotão.
Eles adiaram justamente pra isso. Exatamente, Nitro. Esse que é a minha bronca. Por exemplo, eles adiaram a primeira vez e não fizeram nada. Adiaram a segunda agora. Entendeu? Então, já da primeira vez já não teve muita
Caralho,
alteração.
maluco.
A gente tá falando do Ashes e New World, na verdade.
Vou tirar aqui pra nego não ver. Cara, isso não é foda. Vazou o cartão, ainda não.
É
Ainda...
que são duas propostas diferentes. New World é região e Ashes of Cash é RPG tradicional. Cara, é que New World ele foi feito pra ser o survival, né? E mudaram. Conforme foi passando o desenvolvimento do jogo, decidiram trocar. Não quero mais ser survival, quero ser que seja MMO.
Tá escurão. Pronto, deixa eu só fazer o pagamento aqui do 50 de crédito na Steam que o Saulolô ganhou.
Deixa eu te entregar aqui, cara.
Manda aí que eu já vou.